It is, but I'll tell you what we do have in store. We have our game one being readied up right now. And of course, we already have the players right on the stage getting ready as well. Gabriel Agati versus Francesco Rasini. And what a hot start this is.
This is a brilliant match for us to kick off with today. Two of my favorite players. I love seeing both of these play. We've had Gabriel coming off a top 4 recently over in Brazil, a regional over there, and playing a very similar team as well this weekend to what he played out in Brazil for that regional, getting the top 4. And then we've got Francesco Rasini as well, another very well-versed player, obviously well known for a top 8 finish in the 2023 Malmo Regionals, top 32, and Barcelona special event earlier last year, and the Gdansk Regionals, top 32 there. So both players well familiar with the setting and scene that we are going into this round one.
Yes, they are. And Gabriel, we already have his team on the screen. We've got that Ghost, Terra, Incineral with the Will-O-Wisp that has been increasing in usage recently. But the other members of the archetype are Chien-Pao, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Rillaboom, Raging Bolt, and the Golden Go.
Yeah, the Golden Go, this is the change up to Gabriel's team from what he ran in the last regionals. Like I was saying, he was using the Volcarona there, but opting for the Golden Go coming into this tournament this weekend, going with that Fairy Terra typing that we've seen so commonly used, and that nasty plot as well. With the double fake out, it's a really nice option. We touched on that a little bit at the top of the show, how useful that is to be able to pivot between the Incineroar and the Rillaboom to allow things to be able to set up. And again, we are seeing the Raging Bolt here used by Gabriel with that Calm Mind. So lots of setup options here and impressive options with that Chien-Pao as well with these physical attackers.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the natural thing of being able to just quickly plaster a Chien-Pao Focus Sash onto your team, especially when you've got those physical attackers that can completely benefit off it. And obviously, you have to be a bit cautious with Ice Cold Crash. It does have the chance of missing, but it does have the chance of picking up a flinch.
It does as well, and that's a huge benefit. But we'll take a quick overview of Francesco's team here. He is running the Torkoal, that Ogopon Half-Flame Mask that we've already mentioned, the Incineroar, the Cresselia, Fluttermane, and one of your favorites, Costa, the Ursaluna.
Oh, there it is. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. It's just such a great Pokemon, and it does have the Ghost Terror there, so opting for more of a defensive strategy there in order to forego any weaknesses to fighting types. We know Urshifu is such a big thing, either variant in this meta, but the Sun focus is really key here, and even though Ogopon, like you mentioned before, it's very offensive, especially when powered by the Sun, it has the redirection option if you want to perhaps get a Trick Room mode going, or at least allow another Pokemon like a Fluttermane for burst damage potential on the side.
Especially with that Choice Specs item that it's holding as well, a very common item that we've seen, but players recently kind of opting for that booster energy, so nice to see the Francesco going back to the more standard, more reliable item in that Choice Specs item to allow, like you say, that burst damage when needed. But Gabriel has a lot to worry about because he's got to prevent that Trick Room going up. If the Trick Room goes up and you get something like the Torkoal onto the field, his team's going to really struggle against that. The Golden Go not really going to appreciate taking Eruptions. The Raging Bolt not so bad there, especially if it can get a Calm Mind up. So that's maybe a route that Gabriel goes down where it is able to boost its special defense while the Trick Room is maybe getting set up. If you go down the option of saying, I can't set the Trick Room up, but I'm prepared to stall this out. You've got the options there between the Incineroar can switch into those fire type attacks. But then you look at the other side of the field and Francesco has that Ursaluna, and then both of those Pokemon are really not the ones that you want to be bringing against the Trick Room mode. So that combination of the Torkoal and the Ursaluna, if Francesco can position those onto the field in a Trick Room environment, it's going to really pin Gabriel in and make it difficult for him to get any momentum. And I feel like that's one aspect, one direction that Francesco could go in this match to be able to close things out. But of course, Gabriel, a very well-versed player, knows what he needs to do against Trick Room, so we'll see how he sets up into this one. Definitely has options and ways to be able to make it difficult for Francesco to get that kind of grip of the match.
No doubt about it. And I think you touched on a really key strategy there. Francesco is well aware that Gabriel, being the runner-up of last EUIC in 2023, he's definitely got a few tricks up his sleeve in terms of experience. So that may even sort of opt Francesco to try to go on the offensive, wanting to counter Gabriel's adaptation. So I could see Gabriel easily bringing, let's say, a Golden Go lead, perhaps. Maybe sort of like try to taunt things up and go for Nasty Plot, but we're going to have to see. There is no Golden Go, but I'll tell you what, there's Incineroar and Chien-Pao over on Gabriel's side versus Francesco's Fluttermane and the Ogerpon. This is the beginning of the EUIC.
This is very exciting, and Francesco coming out with a very offensive lead here, where he's got that passive lead with the Cresselia to set the Trick Room up. You might think he goes down that route, but no. Coming out, trying to get, like you say, that burst damage with the Fluttermane. Got the option there, pressuring down that Chen Pao with some big fairy-type attacks, and the Incineroar, and able to go for the fake out this turn. We're going to see the Follow Me from that Ogerpon, pulling all attacks away from that Fluttermane here as the Icicle Crash goes into that slot, doing huge damage, Costa.
Doing huge damage, but Dazzling Gleam does the exact same, at least bringing the Chen Pao down to its Focus Sash. But more importantly, the redirection there will allow Fluttermane to go untouched, but of course, at the cost of the Ogerpon. So we already see Francesco applying that immediate strategy in wanting to go ahead and whittle away Gabriel's answers to any sort of direct Trick Room setup.
Yeah, a big turn here. Gabriel obviously taking a huge lead, getting rid of that Ogerpon. Ogerpon not really getting too much return there, but protecting the Fluttermane, which is great. Now able to bring in the Cresselia in a position to maybe try and set that Trick Room up, set the stage for the later part of this game. But going to have to get through this Chen Pao. It is down to its Focus Sash. It will be vulnerable going into this turn, and we are going to see the Incineroar on the back of that switch out for Gabriel. He's going to keep it for later on in this game as the Rillaboom now hits the field. Going to set that grassy terrain up for 5 turns and offer fake out support going into the next one.
Yeah, and I do really like the fact that Francesco has identified bringing that semi-Trick Room mode in the back, but no, actually Icicle Crash picks up the one-hit KO onto the Fluttermane. It's not even able to go ahead and fend for itself there without the redirection support, and all of a sudden we've got the Trick Room actually being set up right now. This is looking like your Ursaluna wanting to get the sweep action going.
Yeah, that's a really nice play from both players here. The Icicle Crash coming out, and you can see how valuable that is, just taking the Fluttermane down straight away. But Francesco getting some value out of that turn, getting the Trick Room set up, getting this Ursaluna onto the field in a perfect position. But the Ursaluna has to be a little bit careful here, because if it doesn't Terastallize, it is going to be vulnerable to that fake out for a turn, and it will be susceptible to those grass type attacks that are now available from the Rillaboom that has just switched in. The Chen Pao in not the greatest position, but it has got access to protect, can stall out a turn, maybe use that pivoting option between the Rillaboom and the Incineroar to try and wear down this Trick Room turns. So Francesco really needs to take advantage of all 5 turns here to get back in this game.
Exactly that, as we are going to have the pivot action going right now. Bringing the Incineroar in will at least be able to start mitigating the damage output potential from this Ursaluna. So it is down to -1 right now. Facade does come out, target the Rillaboom, but we know, of course, the burn is not in play. There was no protect there. Moonblast trying to target down the Chen Pao to pick up the KO, but Woodhammer, no terror, of course, of the Ursaluna. It goes down straight and out for the count in game 1. Wow.
No messing about here from Gabriel, just going straight for that Woodhammer, not wanting to go for the fake out because of the Ghost Terastallization possibility there on the Ursaluna, just going for the damage to try and remove that big Trick Room threat. And here we are, Gabriel taking a huge advantage in this game 1, and as we see, taking game 1 in this round 1 here at the EUIC Championships.
Yeah, Gabriel's not playing around. He's definitely on form. He's on peak right now, and he's going for it. Like you said, there's a lot of different intricate mind games to take into consideration there. So it's sort of the situation where we see, okay, here's the obvious level 1 play. Right, I'll take you a step up. Francesco's like, okay, I'll make the level 2 play, so I'll be able to sort myself out. But then that leads to Gabriel saying, okay, I'll take the level 3 play, which is essentially equivalent to level 1, but it's in the acknowledgement of level 2, and I'm just going to straightforward attack and pick up the KO, and that's exactly what he did.
And sometimes that's the best way to approach these games. You know, you don't want to take too many risks, and I don't think he needed to there. The Icicle Crash coming out turn 1 into the Ogerpon, of course, getting some big, useful damage there, and then the double up, not going for that fake out with the Incineroar, just doubling into that. Took in return, of course, that Dazzling Gleam damage, but really protected the Chen Pao very well there, being able to utilize that Icicle Crash, the turn 2 onto the Fluttermane, taking that huge damage. And Francesco not really able to get any of a momentum swing there, even though getting the Trick Room up, looking like he was in a good position, especially when that Ursaluna came in, but really Gabriel in a very comfortable position. And all to do for Francesco going into game 2.
Yeah, and I think that Chien Pao KO, one-hit KO onto the Flutter main was quite crucial because it depends on the bulk of the Flutter mains. Chien Pao's naturally with the Focus Sash, they've opted to go more on the Adamant nature side. Whilst the Flutter mains, you would expect choice specs, it should have enough bulk to be able to survive most of them, but that's sort of why you go for Icicle Crash over Ice Spinner. You've got that additional base power. Obviously, you've also got the chance of not being susceptible to any sort of Rocky Helmet situation, so that could have been a sort of calculation based on training, anywhere between, let's say, 12.5% to, I don't know, even like a guaranteed one.
Yeah, exactly, and I think just for that reason alone, it's worth running the risk of that lower accuracy move just for the fact that you can potentially pick up the knockout, and it's so pivotal in those situations there because we saw the speed interaction between the Chien Pao and the Flutter main not really going to be something that Francesco may want to rely on going into this game too. Maybe going to look at something like the Incineroar from his side of the field, kind of match the Incineroar that's brought out and maybe go down more of a Trick Room route from the start because the Ogerpon, great, it is coming out, but you're not really utilizing it to its max potential, right? You're using the Follow Me. It feels a bit wasteful where it's just going down for the fact that you're not really going to be able to get much out of it, and we are going to get straight into game 2 and a change up from Francesco, going with that Incineroar Flutter main and Gabriel sticking with the tried-trusted combination of that Chien Pao and the Incineroar.
Yeah, really nice adaptation here from Francesco. Sort of makes a lot of sense being able to at least get that Intimidate down onto both of these physical Pokemon over on Gabriel's side. Have the Fake Out option. It sort of forces Gabriel into a position where he has to consider Ghost Terror if he really wants to try to capitalize off of this. But now that the Intimidate is on the field, at least on the Chien Pao, most likely the Icicle Crash will not be able to pick up the KO onto the Flutter main.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, and I think it is going to be susceptible, like you mentioned, to the fake out from the opposing Incineroar on Francesco's side of the field. So has to take that into consideration. Don't want to lose that too early on. We are going to see an immediate switch here from Gabriel, taking the Incineroar out of the limelight, bringing that Rillaboom onto the field, giving him maybe access to a fake out the next turn to alleviate some pressure onto that Chien Pao with that fake out. Going to see the Chien Pao just go for the Protect here, not wanting to even entertain taking that double up.
Yeah, as the Dazzling Gleam comes out, no fake out here. This may be a great play from Francesco, opting to go for a parting shot, perhaps into the partner Pokemon, anticipating the Protect there. No, but it's a Flare Blitz at -1. It's enough, and Rillaboom all of a sudden is completely out of the scene.
Back against the wall, Francesco has to make some plays, and he's done exactly that. Calling the Rillaboom coming in on that Incineroar. Great play there, well doubling up on it, and then the Chien Pao in a position now where the Incineroar is going to come back onto the field, but kind of in a more preferable situation where the fake out is more reliable here, but the Chien Pao is still going to be threatened by that Flutter main firing out those Dazzling Gleams. Will be taken down to its Sash, of course. Will it be enough to take down the Flutter main after that Intimidate? Francesco's Incineroar has dropped onto his side of the field.
It's a great play from Francesco. Now sort of at least leads you to the point where Chien Pao is still at -1 of its attack, but it sort of allows Francesco to have a bit more breathing space. He can at least guarantee that Gabriel's pieces are limited, as we have the Icicle Crash coming out, does connect onto the Flutter main, giving us a great indication there of roughly the roles that are taken into consideration as the Dazzling Gleam comes out, will of course once again be bringing the Chien Pao down to its Focus Sash as Flare Blitz doubles up, guarantees a KO, and Francesco's Incineroar, at least for now, indicating that's a bit faster than Gabriel's.
Yeah, this is much better here from Francesco, picking up a key knockout here from that Chien Pao. The Incineroar already showing its worth here. We are going to see a parting shot from Gabriel's Incineroar onto the opposing one, lowering that attack stat even further now going into the rest of this game, and going to be able to reposition it back onto the field, activated with that fake out again. But the Flutter main in a much more preferable position here, with able to take that Icicle Crash so comfortably after the Intimidate.
Yeah, and Raging Bolt actually being revealed as Gabriel's final Pokemon, having booster energy, heightening the special attack output. Sort of one of the sets that we were talking about, Lee, where we weren't anticipating seeing much of them coming into fray, but maybe Gabriel's got something in the kitchen that he's been cooking quite well right now, being able to have that immediate offensive pressure. But Gabriel's still down to his final 2 Pokemon versus Francesco's 4, so it's tough.
It is very tough, and I think one of the things that we have to mention is the fact that he doesn't have that pivot between the Incineroar and the Rillaboom anymore, so the support options there are very limited for Gabriel. No switching any longer in this match. And Francesco in the driving seat here really got that momentum swing. Just really needs to capitalize on it now, especially if there is a Cresselia in the back. Maybe even that Ursaluna that's going to come in and be in a really favorable position against both the Raging Bolt and that Incineroar.
And I do really like the adaptation of actually bringing the Raging Bolt, because you're able to at least anticipate Francesco maybe not wanting to opt out for the Ursaluna strategy straight off the bat. However, we do have a switch up from Francesco. It is going to be the Cresselia, which naturally does give a bit of an indication that Ursaluna may be in the back.
Yeah, and we do see that thunderclap there into the Fluttermane, but not catching it there as it is going to be wasted. A really useful parting shot coming out from Francesco's Incineroar here, going to be able to lure that special attack on the Raging Bolt, which is so vital going forward in this match for everything that he wants to be able to do to execute and bring this match back to 1-1. What are we going to see in place? Is it going to be that Ursaluna? Is that the Pokemon in the back? If it is for Francesco, he's in a great position here. Gabriel doing all the right things here. We've got the Incineroar waiting to go for an attack. If it wants to go for a parting shot, or if it wants to go for some just damage on to Francesco's side of the field. But Francesco just taking his time, and it is the Ursaluna coming out onto the field here for Francesco.
Ooh, Flare Blitz focusing down on that. Ursaluna actually dealing respectable amounts of damage there, as it hadn't actually fallen susceptible to the Intimidate drop prior, but this doesn't change things right now. The burn has been forced via the Flame Orb, and all of a sudden, we've got a very safe spot from Francesco. The momentum is completely in his favor. Raging Bolt really doesn't like this position, especially the fact that it didn't even get a Calm Mind up.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it's taken a parting shot already, and you've got the Incineroar pretty healthy in the back to bring in at any point to utilize that again. We are going to see Gabriel just forfeit this match. Francesco taking a real handle of that game too, not wanting to lose this first match easily and tying it up, taking us to a game 3, Costa.
This is like, it's just so hype. Like, I've got to say it, because we saw Gabriel just completely taking all of the momentum in his favor and just starting so strong. And then Francesco was like, okay, right, let me just grab that momentum real quick and just swing it your way in the form of that Incineroar lead, which all of a sudden just broke down Gabriel's lead of the Chi and Power Incineroar there. And yeah, it just really put Gabriel in the position where he needed to try to take additional steps in order to bring the momentum back in his favor. It's just, he was outpaced.
Yeah, and I think that really the key turn was that turn 1 where the double up was into the Rillaboom to catch that, and then obviously being able to be in a position where he was able to knock out that Chen Pao the following turn after that with the pressure, knowing that the Chen Pao had just went for the protect the previous turn, and just in a really dominant position. It was almost like you say roles reversed in this match, where Francesco was able to get real value out of all members of his side of the field, whereas Gabriel just wasn't. The Rillaboom really didn't get any return, came in, got knocked out. Chen Pao got maybe one Icicle Crash off, got knocked out, and then you're down to 2 Pokemon. The ability to pivot out and utilize the tools of your team are completely limited. That's why we saw Gabriel probably go for the forfeit very early here, take it to a game 3 for Gabriel to readjust. I think we saw Francesco readjust in that game 2 so well, but it's up to Gabriel to now readjust to the problems that he's facing on Francesco's side of the field, namely that kind of fast mode, especially when supported by Incineroar. You can see the value there, and then that Trick Room mode in the back that you need to have answers for as well, not allow things like the Rillaboom to be taken down so easily.
Yeah, and I think you've got a couple of different considerations. Maybe Gabriel could think about bringing Urshifu Rapid Strike. You know, you're not susceptible to the Intimidates via use of Surging Strikes. You do have the Poison Terror on it as well, so that will make it resist any Fairy-type moves coming out from the Flutter main. Could be a potential. It may force Terras as well, which is great stuff. And I think in this sort of battle of attrition between Francesco and Gabriel, you need to try to force your opponent's hand as soon as you can in order to give yourself that breathing room and potential advantage going into the subsequent turns.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point. I think with that Poison Terastallization there on the Urshifu does make it a really viable option going into this game. And then we are going to see that adjustment from Gabriel, bringing the Chen Pao and the Urshifu to the field in the face of Francesco's Fluttermane and the Ogerpon Half-Flame.
I love it. I think it makes a lot of sound sense, and we actually see Francesco not bringing the Incineroar as a lead. So reverting back to the game 1 lead there, having the redirection potential alongside that Fluttermane burst damage. And in this position, you may feel, if you're Francesco, perhaps if I get enough damage, I could guarantee a 3-hit KO onto a Poison Terror type Urshifu. It may allow myself to better place myself because it's not Choice Scarf Urshifu, it is Mystic Water, so I will be able to outpace it, and at this current point, it doesn't look like there's any immediate speed control over on Gabriel's side.
No, not at all, but we are seeing a bit of a precarious turn here from Gabriel, just not wanting to take any risks. We are going to see Francesco switch out the Fluttermane, an option to bring in that Cresselia. Just keep that Fluttermane for maybe later on in this game and try and get that Trick Room set up as we see the Chen Pao go for the Protect, and then a Detect is going to come out from this Urshifu as well. Just wanted to scout out what Francesco is trying to do this turn.
Okay, it makes very sound sense right here. You are wanting to sort of maybe check out if you have already forced a Terrestrialization from Francesco's side in order to have that additional damage output perhaps from the Fluttermane. But the fact that now Francesco is in a spot to just easily redirect, set up the Trick Room, bring in the Ursaluna, already spells a bit of trouble for Gabriel.
Yeah, but I do feel like the Urshifu is in a position where it does have that priority attacking move in Aqua Jet, so the Ursaluna has to really go for the Terrestrialization if it does come onto the field. Probably not so much of a problem for Francesco, but like you say, in a good position now where you've got that redirection to take advantage of. Even if the Ogerpon does go down here, then that's kind of fine because you get your Trick Room up set up for free. Cresselia is going to be in a nice, healthy position going forward, and if the Ogerpon does go down, you've got that Ursaluna to come in and cause a lot of problems going forward.
Oh, but we've got the Aqua Jet dealing so much damage thanks to that sort of ruin, but the Ice Steel Crash misses. This is one of the main reasons why you need a double check to see if you want to run this move, as Ivy Cudgel will be dropping the Chien-Pao down to its Focus Sash, and this may... Oh, we see the double up into the Chien-Pao, picking up the KO. You can see Gabriel's face of dismay there, why that is such a pivotal point to actually lose in this game 3.
It's a huge, huge turn here for Francesco, getting the big knockout on the Chen Pao. You think going for the Trick Room here, but not going for it just yet. Really playing it very well, Francesco, taking his time and picking the right moment for it. Probably wanting to get rid of these big physical threats before going for that Trick Room, because in the face of Chen Pao and that Urshifu, especially with this sort of rune ability active, you don't really want to get your Ursaluna onto the field in the face of the Urshifu and that Chen Pao. Yeah, you could go for the Ghost Terrestrialization, but then you come susceptible to the Sucker Punch that the Chen Pao has access to. So you really want to remove those threats first, and doing a very good job of it. Gabriel's back against the wall here and has a lot to do. Fake Out coming out into that Ogerpon.
Fake Out into the Ogerpon. There's no Terrestrialization at all from Gabriel's side, just wanting to guarantee pick up the KO onto at least the Ogerpon. So Cresselia is in a point right now. It is free to set up Trick Room, and Ursaluna will still have its Terrestrialization option intact and no longer be susceptible, like you quite nicely identified there, Lee, from the Sucker Punch on the Chien-Pao's side, because it was sort of like a pin-sear strategy from Gabriel with the double priority axis of Aqua Jet being super effective versus the ground typing, Sucker Punch being super effective against the ghost typing Terrestrialization.
Yeah, and I think here as well, there's another pincer movement here where the Cresselia has the option now under this Trick Room to go for that Moonblast, and then the Ursaluna has the option to go for a ground type attack, so it really pins in the Urshifu where it can't really freely go for that Terrestrialization. Yeah, you can avoid and make the fairy type damage not very effective, but at the same time, if you do that, you're making the ground type attack super effective. You do have the Rillaboom on the field as well. It does give you a little bit more support going into this turn, but if you are Francesco, you've got the time now where you can maybe stall out, get that Flame Orb activated, get the burn, so you can do more damage the following turn with your Ursaluna.
Yeah, so Gabriel wanting to get the cycling going of the Intimidates here to be able to slow down Ursaluna's horses, but if this is going to be a headlong rush into that slot, it will be super effective versus this Incineroar. However, it does have the Shuka Berry, an item we don't commonly see nowadays from the Incineroar.
Yeah, not an item at all, and I think it's going to be really useful if Francesco does scout that switch out here, and it's a pretty easy move to go for the headlong rush. It is into that Incineroar, and there's the Shuka Berry activating Incineroar, taking that so well.
Wow, and this is at a point where the Woodhammer may even pick up the KO here. It will depend on the training of both this Rillaboom and the Ursaluna. Moonblast trying to focus down into the Incineroar, but this is the real moment right now that's so crucial. It just misses the KO, so you will be able to get a tiny bit of recovery due to the grass terrain. but you are now susceptible to the Grass Glide KO, even though you're immune to fake outs.
Yeah, and this is real tricky here for Francesco to take any advantage of the Ursaluna, getting some good damage off the Incineroar, but you can see the value of that Sugar Berry here that Gabriel's got on that Incineroar. The Rillaboom now getting the Wood Hammer off as well. Huge, huge turn. Yeah. Not opting for anything else, not wanting to mess around, just going for the straight-up damage. So close to picking up that Ursaluna, and now the Grassy Glide is a huge threat to that Pokemon. Taking it down will be a step further forward for Gabriel to try and take this game one.
And it sort of forces Francesco now to have to go for the Protect and Lunar Blessing play, but the Cresselia is now susceptible to the Fake Out from the Incineroar, so it is a bit of a pincered moment for Francesco. He does have the option of trying to switch in the Flutter Mane, but you're already under Trick Room, so you're really having a tough time trying to play out with those switch-ins and switch-outs.
Yeah, and it is risky, of course, switching out here, because if Gabriel picks up on this, can go for another Wood Hammer potentially into that slot and potentially even pick up a knockout here. We do see the Fake Out into the Cresselia and the Grassy Glide taking huge damage onto that Fluttermane. And like you say, that pincer motion coming into play here from Gabriel. Fake Out into the Cresselia, preventing that Lunar Blessing, which is huge. And then the Fluttermane taking huge damage from that Grassy Glide. Now pinned in, because what have you got in the back to switch in if you're Francesco? So Luna's going to come in. Yeah, that'll go down to a Grassy Glide. So it's very easy now for Gabriel. Now he's got this board position set up to just continually go for that Grassy Glide into that slot. Whatever comes in there is going to get knocked out.
Yeah, the slot's locked out. That's it. There's always going to be a KO that's going to be picked up there. So if you're Francesco right now, you really wishing, first of all, you had Ally Switch on Cresselia, but you're going to have to really take into consideration which Pokemon you want to try to rely on right now, the Fluttermane or the Ursaluna, and if there's any mileage that you can get out of being able to turn this round.
Yeah, and it seems very difficult at this point, with all emphasis being on that Cresselia. Has it got the damage output to take down the Incineroar? And not only that, the Assault Vest Rillaboom, which is also even more bulky than what we've seen the Incineroar be already. We are going to see the Fluttermane switch out, the Ursaluna take the field once again and take that Grass Glide for its troubles and get knocked out.
Yeah, it gets knocked out. So Francesco opting to have the Fluttermane in the back, maybe hoping that the Grassy Glide is a roll to not guarantee pick up a 2-hit KO from that range, as Flare Blitz will be focusing down onto this Cresselia. And if there's a focus of the Moonblast that leads into the Incineroar, it will whittle its HP down even further. But no, Lunar Blessing, wanting to be safe, wanting to get that recovery going, because Cresselia needs to enable its partner Pokemon and at least try to salvage this Game 3 to allow Francesco to get his Game 1 win.
Yeah, it's very difficult from this point. The Fluttermane going to come back in, but going to be susceptible to the Grassy Glide once again. The Grassy Train's still on the field, and if you are Francesco, you need to be able to stall that out. Unfortunately, because it has got the Choice Specs item, doesn't have that option, so it is really all down to the Cresselia. And Gabriel, what has done is being able to preserve the Terrestrialization here and has it waiting for potentially that Urshifu to come in, Terrestrialize into the Poison type, and then the Cresselia is going to be locked out, not able to really do any damage to it going forward. And you're just going to whittle down with the remaining resources that you have left.
And there it goes. Fluttermane is now out. Poor Cresselia is on its lonesome self versus the Fearsome 3, being the Fire, Water, Grass core of the mischievous Pokemon over on Gabriel's side. Flare Blitz trying to do as much as it can on a very buffy, very bulky Cresselia. It's trying to bring it back, but unfortunately for Cresselia, even though special attack drop definitely does not matter, it just seems like Gabriel has been able to just really take control of this Game 3 in an exceptional way, to the point where he just based it off of those first 2 turns, and it was able to unlock the rest of the game for him.
Yeah, I think that was the key for Gabriel, and keeping the Rillaboom and the Incineroar vital cogs in being able to close this Game 3. And Cresselia, really unfortunate for Francesco, but it is not the Pokemon that you want as your remaining Pokemon to be the one for offensive damage, especially against these really defensively built Pokemon like the Rillaboom with that Assault Vest, with the Incineroar as well. It's just taking neutral damage from those Moonblasts.
Yeah, as Urshifu is going to be brought back in, we are going to see the Cresselia just trying to battle this out as best as it can, dealing respectable damage to the Urshifu, to be fair, whilst getting another drop. However, Flare Blitz, is this enough to pick up the KO? It is! And all of a sudden, we have your round 1 winner of the stream match being Gabriel Agati.
What a phenomenal performance to kick off round 1 here for us today at the EUIC 2024 Championships. Gabriel Agati, a finalist last year, and kicking off in great form again in this tournament to hopefully take on and go all the way again this year. But really unfortunate for Francesco. Had a really good adjustment in game 2, but Gabriel showing his qualities really as a player, being able to just take his time in that game 3, not fall for those kind of the same problems that he had in that game 2. Where he was just so unable to kind of overcome what Francesco was doing. The adjustment to bring the Urshifu there was just fantastic. And then, like you've mentioned throughout that game, the utility, how he used the Rillaboom and that Incineroar to really pin down and get that pincer movement onto the big hitters once that Trick Room came up from Francesco's side of the field.
I think just being able to have the option of the Poison Terror on the Urshifu just proved too much for Francesco to have to take into consideration. There was, of course, the Icicle Crash within that game, actually, from Gabriel's side. So even though Francesco had a very strong start and was able to capitalize off of that by getting rid of the Chien-Pao, he just wasn't able to sort of navigate that mid towards end game scenario where Gabriel was like, okay, cool, Chien-Pao's down, but at least I still have the backbone of the Fire Water Grass with the Fake Out disruption to rely on.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems with the Ursaluna is when you're bringing it, especially if the Rillaboom's still active on the field. I think we saw it in game 2 where the Rillaboom was taken care of so easily, where the Ursaluna is just kind of so much more free in that sort of situation. But with the Incineroar cycling in those Intimidates and then the Grassy Glide being so pressure point, you know, it makes it so difficult for the Ursaluna to get any sort of momentum there. And the Wood Hammer was the critical turn here.
Such a nice play. Going
for that big damage, even with the Terrestrialization doing so much damage and really pinning in that Ursaluna, making it unable to get any sort of momentum swing going forward. And as you see, the Rillaboom doing big work for Gabriel once again.
I think that would be the highlight turn, if I'm completely honest, where Gabriel, he had his own back against the wall. He was able to completely capitalize and just knock down any sort of additional resources the Ursaluna could provide there by just going for it. He has the Sugar Berry on the Incineroar, something we don't commonly see at all so far, and just being able to completely play into that in the exceptional way that he did. You've got the Intimidate drop onto the Ursaluna, but then you've also got the Shuka. And what did it take, like 40, 50 HP's worth of damage? I was like, that's insane.
It's just not enough, is it?
No.
And I think if you were Francesco in that situation, you really needed to preserve the Ogerpon for that particular situation. Because if you had the switch into the Ogerpon there, then you've got a great switch into the Grassy Glide, you've got a great switch into the Flare Blitz. So without that, it makes it very difficult.
It does indeed, but we're going to hear from the man himself, Gabriel. So we're going to go ahead, throw it to the stage for a winner's interview.
Thank you so much, and welcome, trainers, to the EUIC VG stage. I'm here with your winner of that thrilling round 1, Gabriel Agati. Gabriel, that was tense. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. Yeah, winning on stream, especially on round 1. I was never on stream on round 1, so yeah, that's pretty cool.
Excellent stuff. It's you managed to keep your cool just like that Chien-Pao, and that's what I want to start with talking about. Game 1, Chien-Pao, Icicle Crash, left, right, and center. It was getting such crucial knockouts. That must have felt good in Game 1.
Yeah, I was very surprised this Psycho Crash pick up the KO into Fluttermane because I was expecting it to be very bulky.
Right.
But yeah, I was really happy when he just got a KO.
Made the path a whole lot clearer. But then, Game 3, that Icicle Crash missed, arguably the most crucial one, but you still managed to win. So when that missed, what were you thinking?
Yeah, when I missed, I was a bit worried, but then I realized that I could still win because Urshifu was great against what he had, especially with the Terra Poison, because I can use it against Fluttermane as well, and the Cresselia only had Moonblast. So yeah, I just tried to stay calm, and it worked.
Well, there you go. Take it from the pro. You need to stay collected in order to triumph in the end in this game. Game 2, of course, that was a loss for you. How were you feeling after the first turn of that game?
Yeah, my opponent did a great read on, and I pretty much lost the game on turn 1. I think I tried to play it a bit too safe after winning game 1,
sure.
So maybe I need to be a bit more reckless.
Yeah. Francesco really managed to turn up the heat on you there, Gabriel, but your tournament's off to a really good start. So, Gabriel, very shortly we'll let you get progressed in the EUIC. I want to know, first of all, would you choose Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle?
As a kid, I choose Charmander.
Okay.
But I like all the trees, so... Yeah.
Okay. We'll go with Charmander. We'll go with Charmander. Keep a little tally over the weekend. Finally, Gabriel, any shout-outs you want to give?
Yeah, thanks to my friends that helped me get my team for this event. So, Pedrinho, Hashiki, Katel, you guys are amazing. Yeah, thank you all for the help with the practice as well. Pedrinho, Eduardo, yeah.
Takes a village to raise a Pokemon trainer. Well, I'm here with last year's EUIC runner-up, and we're one little step closer to see who'll be lifting the EUIC Cup. Costa and Lee, back to you.